Thank you for tuning in to the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like the material. It's been brought to my attention that a former elder by the name of Michael had committed suicide. There's some footage of an interview that he did previously that we're going to take a look at today. So please follow along. I'd like to warn you that this video would be very triggering due to the nature of what happened to our dear brother, Michael. In fact, as you watch the broadcast, you'll see that he had a lot of pain from his experience as a Jehovah's Witness and the way it ended.
Welcome to Watchtower History.
I'd like to encourage you to go over to Watchtower History. They're the individuals that provided this interview. Please check out the channel and make sure you subscribe and show support. They do very good work.
I'm Michael. I was born in as a witness. I'm fourth generation. Grew up in a witness family, good parents, wonderful family. My family has a long history of being in the Watchtower. And growing up, I did everything I was supposed to do. It was in the congregation, if you weren't an elder or a ministerial servant, you were basically worthless. So the only friends I was allowed to have would be people in the congregation.
He is so right. If you're not an elder or a ministerial servant by a certain age, people look at you funny within the congregation.
We were not allowed to have anyone that we could associate with. I did have a lot of fun at home with my parents, my sisters. There's 8 of us all together. But as I got older, I began to see the hypocrisy within the organization. And it started to unravel as I got older because I lost my father. And he had served as an elder many years. And when he became no use, he was forgotten about. And then 4 years later, to the day that I lost him, I lost my mother. And so I began to be in a tailspin. But I kept doing everything right. My wife and I, we raised our children, our 4 children, as witnesses. And I was appointed as an elder. And I began my first elders meeting, I thought this has got to be the biggest joke in town. Because the first meeting, it was like a boys' club. And as I went on through with different...
I just want to say that our heart goes out to Michael's family, his wife, and children.
Judicial committees, and I saw how people were just basically a number with the way that the Elders Manual had you handle certain cases. It made me sick. So I began to do a lot of research, and I began to find the doctrines. First of all, the overlapping generation, when that came out, all my life I had been told that as time, the end drew closer, that the number would dwindle and then the end would come. And when that overlapping generation that David Splain tried to explain, it was a joke. And I think to myself, what individual with the mentality would believe this?
The generation is a very hard concept to follow, especially with Jehovah's Witnesses' new light that they present, because the original generation of 1914, all of those individuals died. And as the years went on, Jehovah's Witnesses continued to make things up as they go along, because the years continue to go and there's no end yet.
And through my research, I came upon the Australian Royal Commission, and I was appalled by what I had heard come from Jeffrey Jackson's mouth about the mouthpiece, them being the only ones that were the mouthpiece of God. And he said that would be, I can't remember the name or the term he used, but that it would be presumptuous for them to believe that. Well, in Watchtower culture, these men, the governing body, are set up on this pedestal. As a child, I remember thinking that they were actually getting messages from Jehovah God on what.
I think we all thought the same thing, that the governing body had a fast track to God, receiving information directly from him. So Michael is right on point.
To do. And then when I saw that, it really made me start to wonder. And I read Raymond Fran's Crisis of Conscience. And I saw how he had a crisis of conscience. And it bothered me that I had sat on judicial committees that made me sick. When you have a young woman, 20 years old, who had sex, and they want to know every intimate detail of what went on, first of all, that's none of their business. I'm a father. I've got 3 daughters. It would make me just infuriated if my daughters had to sit there and give out intimate details. I have seen people who were related to high-ranking elders, and I would see them we'll just keep this quiet. But then you'd have another member of the congregation who came and confessed, and you could tell they were repentant, that they were truly sorry, and they would be disfellowshipped.
Michael is certainly telling the truth. On a broader scale, you could see with Jehovah's Witnesses, the way they dealt with Prince. They made a lot of exceptions for Prince that they would not have made for a regular rank and file Jehovah's Witness.
I got tired of the child abuse that was running rampant within the organization. The letters that we would receive. We had one move into our congregation, and I wanted to go and warn the other families in the congregation that this individual was a danger. And because I directed some of these families to look on the sex offender registry, I got put basically what I was called apostate watch is what I was put on. So from that time forward, there were things that just really just started to overwhelm me. And mentally, psychologically, I could not handle it. And so I kept this quiet to myself.
Keep in mind, folks, that Michael served as an elder when most of these things were happening.
For a long time. I came to a breaking point with the last judicial committee that I was forced to be on. And during this judicial committee, I said, stop. You don't have to sit here and you don't have to go into these details. We're all adults here. And from that moment on, I was ostracized. I was marked.
Jehovah's Witnesses are experts when it comes to ostracizing or excommunicating people, separating you from life in general with people that you love.
So I stepped down as an elder, and I wrote a letter why I was stepping down. I was asked if I thought that the governing body was the mouthpiece and under direction from Jehovah God. I told them, watch the Australian Royal Commission.
Does the governing body, or do the members of the governing body, do you see yourself?
This is Jeffrey Jackson, a member of the governing body, being questioned by the Australian Royal Commission. And notice what happens.
As modern day disciples, the modern day equivalent of Jesus's disciples?
We certainly hope to follow Jesus and be his disciples.
And do you see yourselves as Jehovah God's spokespeople on earth?
That I think would seem to be quite presumptuous to say that we are the only spokesperson that God is using. The scriptures clearly show that someone can act in harmony with God's Spirit in giving comfort and help in the congregations. But if I could just clarify a little, going back to Matthew 24.
Jehovah's Witnesses boast about being the only true religion and being the spokesperson for God. However, we hear something quite different in his tone and what he's conveying as he answers the questions.
Clearly, Jesus said that in the last days, and if Jehovah's Witnesses believe these are the last days, there would be a slave, a group of persons who would have responsibility to care for the spiritual food. So in that respect, we view ourselves as trying to fulfill that role.
Jeffrey Jackson,
A masterful play on words.
himself said that would be presumptuous. Their answer to that was, well, this man, they probably photoshopped and did video trickery to make him say that. And I said, I've watched the official documentary on it, and that did not happen. He said those things. And so from then on, I quit going to the Kingdom Hall. I've been asked to go to my own judicial committee. I refuse to do so. They have tried to come between my wife and my children, saying that my children are fatherless because I don't go to the meetings, that I no longer believe in their doctrine. First of all, I'm not a deadbeat dad. I work 80, 90 hours a week to care for my wife and my children. I still am a believer in Jesus. I'm not an atheist. I know many that leave Watchtower, they turn to that, and that's their privilege. That's their right. We were born with free will. But myself, I still believe in the Bible and in Jesus Christ. One other doctrine was, all of my life, I was taught that Jesus Christ was my mediator. And then when that teaching changed, that those 8 men in New York City were my mediator between me and my Heavenly Father, it disgusted me. And so I left.
Again, Jehovah's Witnesses make it up as they go.
And at this time, I'm shunned, been shunned by people that I've been friends with that I truly love. I don't have a problem with the rank and file Jehovah's Witness. Still love them. If they called me tonight and said they needed help, as a child of Christ, I would go do that for them. But I can no longer accept or be under the rule of the 8 governing body members up in New York City, or Warwick as they are at now. My wife had been approached by elders, and she was told that she should leave me because I'm mentally diseased, that I'm a danger to my children and to her spiritually. They have had other people contact her, other men, and I squashed that. That's not happening. Now, my wife is a wonderful woman.
This religion has a lot of blood guilt when it comes to people's lives, and it's really sad, especially when we think about the fact of what happened to Michael. And that's why it's so important for all of us to keep pushing and keep working to expose this religion.
She's a God-fearing woman. We made our vows to each other before God, not to the Watchtower organization. And so I don't want to go into a lot of the detail for legal reasons of what's happened, but there will be no one come between my wife and my children. That is my steadfast action right now. But one thing that I want to share is I have a good friend, my best friend, and I won't name his name right now because he's in a mental health facility. To give you a short story, he and his wife were expecting a baby. When the child was born, she would not let him sign the birth certificate because she had been having an affair with an elder in another congregation. She was not disciplined. This elder was not disciplined, but because my friend was vividly upset, as you can imagine, went and he would go to other elders. He would call the branch. He was disfellowshipped. As a result, he became suicidal, and he did try to take his own life. Now, at this time,
Look at all the people and the lives affected by Jehovah's Witnesses. It's just so sad.
I do not know where he's at. He's in protection from himself in a medical facility. But that's just some of the harm that the Watchtower Society has done to people. My whole life has been turned upside down because I questioned the doctrine and the procedures of the Watchtower Bible Tract Society.
Jehovah's Witnesses will tell you, especially at the headquarters Bethel, that you're living in a spiritual paradise. But when we look at cases like Michael and what happened to him, and also the friend that he's speaking about in this experience, we see that it's a different story once you're inside the religion.
All of my friends I've ever had, I live in a small town, and I'll walk up to someone and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And they turn around and look at you and say they can't talk to me, or they'll ignore me. That's not Christian. Jesus taught us to do unto others as we would have men do unto us. And I try my best to follow the golden rule. But that's just a snippet of my story. And in later time, I will share more of it. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow, exactly. What a powerful story that he shared. And it's too sad that Michael lost his life to suicide.
What's scary is this isn't an isolated case. I mean, going to people's family and wives telling them you're mentally ill, you're sick. I'm laughing at how bizarre it is. It's not, wow. I mean, what else do you say?
I mean, even going to them and saying, well, he committed spiritual adultery, so you should divorce him. You have every right to divorce him because he committed spiritual adultery. And oh, by the way, you can marry me. But that's absolutely ridiculous. And the gentleman that he was talking about, he's tried to commit suicide at least 3 times now, as far as we know, because of how distraught Watchtower has made him because of the situation.
Wow. And it's
The mental bondage of Jehovah's Witnesses is definitely a serious matter, and we see it affecting people in the worst way, especially when people are taking their lives.
funny reading some of the comments sent and emails, and that's we get a lot of comments from Jehovah's Witnesses in private emails. Some of them are condoning the disfellow. This is it. This is your disfellowshipping practice right here. And I like the part. I mean, that's how I would be. I mean, if somebody came into a congregation who was a known predator, I mean, am I not going to tell my friends, hey, watch out for this guy. Don't be alone with him. Because the Watchtower gives this impression that if you're a brother in good standing, everything's just wonderful and great. And they'll allow, naive, innocent people will allow someone like that into their home. Even, I mean, what if it was a single woman sister with a child?
This channel that we're watching is Jeff and Paul. Watchtower History is the name on YouTube. I'd like to encourage each and every one of you to go check it out and continue to watch the end of the video. And again, we'd like to share our condolences to Michael, his family, and all the people that he loved and loved him. And it's too sad the things that happen in the Jehovah's Witness religion, because it's just terrible. Thank you for tuning in to the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like the material. We'll see you on the next live.